next up for Carolina, we talked about it after the Tennessee game, how you don't really have time to pat yourself on the back because the schedule is brutal for non-conference games. Carolina in action on Saturday against the number 14 team in the country, Kentucky, a fellow blue blood program. How does Carolina match up with this Kentucky team for the people that haven't really gotten the chance to watch Kentucky this year?
Yeah, I think guard wise, well, first off, overall, I think Kentucky is a lot bigger than Carolina, especially with the guards. With if you have Elliott and RJ at the 1 and 2, really from 3, 4, and 5, I think they match up pretty well size wise. But um, I think this is going to be a really fast paced game. The game that I think about is when we play Kentucky in Vegas. I think it'll be another one of those type of games where it's up and down, high pace, and a lot of scoring. But I think Carolina matches up well with Kentucky. But like I said, Kentucky has a little bit more size. I think throughout the team they have a little bit more athleticism. And then Kentucky does have two really good guys coming off of the bench which will make a huge difference for Kentucky. But I think overall both of these teams match up in pretty well in their own ways.
Yeah, and I saw a stat where one of the main differences between the Roy Williams era of Carolina basketball and the Hubert Davis era of Carolina basketball, it's that under Hubert Davis, this team doesn't really generate a ton of takeaways or a ton of turnovers. And the first 2 years they were 356 and 344th in turnover rate. This one, it's slightly better, 238th as of Sunday afternoon, but still not really doing a good job turning the ball over for other teams. And you have a team like Kentucky next on the schedule, who is one of the best teams in the country at not turning the ball over. If you're this Carolina team, how can you emphasize the turnovers and getting out in transition the way that your teams under Roy Williams, that's what you guys made like your bread and butter on, how well you guys were able to run the floor?
Yeah, I think defensively, Coach Davis's principles are a little bit different than ours. We were up in the passing lane trying to stop the rotation of the basketball. So that does play a difference. Right now, it seems like they're more, guard right at the 3-point line, not necessarily up in the lanes. I think the only time they get up in the lane is if someone picks up the ball, and obviously you want to put pressure, make it haywire, and make sure that they're not just able to deliver a good pass. But I just think more they're just, contain and guard and make sure that we're not getting beat off the dribble. Because, when you're up in the passing lane, that does give you an opportunity to have more backdoor cuts. Sometimes you overplay. But I think, for this going up against Kentucky, I think the best thing that you can do is make them play in the half court, because it's still a young team. And sometimes it's hard for young players to trust the execution of the offense. And, against that Miami team, they got out on the break, man, and they're really, really good in the open court. Like, the athleticism comes into play. They have a guard. I was talking about Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd coming off the bench. Those guys can get up and down. So I think the one thing that Carolina can do is limit live ball turnovers, and just keep Kentucky in the half court, make them trust in their execution, which I think can play in the hands of Carolina and be advantageous for them.
Another big game, Kentucky, North Carolina, Battle of the Blue Bloods in the CBS Sports Classic this Saturday, 5:30 p.m. tip Eastern time on CBS.